Welcome to Haunted Homebodies, where Halloween isn't just a day, it's a lifestyle. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Sarah, and we're your guides through the delightfully dark corners of comfort horror.
Grab your Jiffy Pop and your jammies.
It's time to get caller ID.
So I'm wearing, of course, my Scream cardigan.
Which I've been looking forward to.
And I am drinking out of my Scream cup. And I walked across the parking lot to my office, and I was like, wow, I'm a total fangirl. It's like they actually look like they were made to like be worn together. Not that you wear a cup. In this context.
I knew you were going to come in your Scream getup today. And I was like, what will I wear for Scream? Yeah. So I decided I was going to give my best attempt to dress like Sidney Prescott.
Okay, I was going to say, the second you said that, I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I feel like you're giving Sidney. Like that was big time.
Yeah, the jacket, the dark lip. I already have the bangs. They're not as good as her wispy 90s bangs, but I'm doing my best.
Hair. Yeah, no, it's working. Yeah.
Good, I'm glad. I
also just appreciate the effort. I love that.
I couldn't not do something. No promises on dressing like characters for future installments.
I know, I'm thinking really Cabin in the Woods. Like, do we dress up like zombies?
Well, tune in, everyone, to find out. We try to bring Cabin in the Woods vibes.
Seriously. This is also my favorite movie, possibly, of all time.
Really? I think you're number one.
Yeah, I don't know. I have trouble ranking things, but I think if I had to pick a favorite movie right now in this second, it would probably be Scream.
Wow.
I know.
Well, I'm extra excited for this episode.
Yeah, I love it a lot.
I know very little about Scream and have probably now seen it twice.
Oh my gosh, we're like flip-flopping from Practical Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen it twice. Like today. Once today, as I was when I was doing the recap. But yeah, I did watch it today, one other time this week. And probably, I don't know, it's one of those ones where I would lose track. It's not like Lord of the Rings numbers, but it's up there. So, Sarah, today we are talking about Scream, the original 1996. I almost said cult classic. It's not a cult classic. It is a classic, period. Love it. One of my favorite movies of all time. If I haven't said it, I'm probably going to say it a million more times. I love this movie so much. I think half of my articles of clothing at one point had Ghostface on them. And like recently, you know, I'm not ashamed to say it. It's true.
It's actually really impressive.
It's weird. But I mean, I have like probably 5 outfits.
It's dedicated.
Postpartum me has this one cardigan that fits, but you know, whatever.
It's great.
We'll rebuild. We will rebuild. This is me just after having a baby. You'll see. You'll get there.
Yeah.
Good times. Anyway, I have a question for you before we get into this episode today. Have you ever received a creepy phone call?
So I cannot think of one in particular, except that feeling back when there were landlines, when you picked up the phone and no one was on the other side. So I haven't had something where someone said something creepy, but like we both grew up like in the middle of, on the edge of the woods. So everything was like a little creepier if it happened at night. And so anytime that landline would ring, you'd answer it. And if someone else was not on the other side of that call, that was a really creepy feeling.
Oh my gosh, totally. So I had several experiences like that, and sometimes we would occasionally be home alone, and I haven't lived in a place like this since, I don't think, but you would go out of our doors and it would be like black. You could not see anything, and so quiet except for all of the like crunchy leaf sounds of the critters just walking around, which you always are convinced it's just someone coming to murder you. Oh
my gosh. And we both had driveways where you would like park a little far away from the front door. Like you had
Yes.
to walk a little bit. And I actually, this is not on topic for calls, but I have this really distinct memory of having watched the Blair Witch Project
Oh
for the
no.
first time, parking my car in like the turnaround a little bit down the hill and literally sprinting
Running.
into my house.
Okay. The Blair Witch Project traumatized me.
Not a comfort watch.
No. We
No.
will not be covering it, so I will talk about it briefly here. I did not watch that movie until, I don't know, maybe within the past 5 years. And here's why. Yes. So we were pretty young when that came out. I don't remember the year, but I want to say between like 11 and 13.
That feels right.
Ish.
I didn't see it until high school.
Yeah, okay. So you didn't see it like when it came out.
No.
My sister, who was like 3 years older, and our neighbor, Heather, who is a listener, I think, of this podcast, but like former listener, Heather, if you're there, we love you. Hey.
Hi. Hello.
Hope you're doing well. They thought it'd be like really funny to torment me and like other younger siblings in her family by like convincing us that the Blair Witch was real. And let me tell you, it worked. They built a fort. Like a stick fort, and my sister like brought me down and they're like, this is where she lives. They did like carvings in the tree. At one point they put like a Blair Witch movie like paraphernalia, like some sort of pin like in a tree. I was so convinced that she lived across the street from my house. Heather and Courtney, you got me good. you got me good.
Still some feelings about that to
Oh my
day.
gosh, the trauma's still like a little fresh when I talk about it. I'm like, am I sweaty now? But anyway, I don't think I ever got a creepy call specifically either, but I do remember several. Well, okay, so this would qualify as creepy. There's the call that frequently would happen, just like having a landline wrong number. People just sometimes be kind of weird about it. But then I do remember one time that no one was on the line, and then I did get the like heavy breathing on the other end.
No.
I
That's
know.
Terrifying.
I know, which is just, more than likely just a prank. Could have been a like creepy prank.
Yeah.
It's not good. The time of landlines was just a whole different time.
Yeah, well,
the time was the time. It was a time, you know.
it was a time back then in that time. But there's something different about getting a call to a landline because it was location specific. I get a creepy call to my cell phone and it would be a very different experience because I could be anywhere. They don't know where I am.
That's true. It feels very like that you're at home, right? If you're picking up that phone, you are in the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's yeah. So that's creepy, and that that is actually a big part of Scream. So let's get into it, right? So Scream, I love you. Okay, I just had to say it one more time, I guess, before I got into it. Scream was directed by Wes Craven, horror legend. He has since passed. R.I.P. Wes Craven. I love you. He's awesome. Amazing director. The screenplay was written by Kevin Williamson. Very talented. He created Dawson's Creek. Also as a co-creator. I know.
What?
Yeah, I learned that. I was like, really? Okay, so that's an interesting turn. But yeah, then he got really into, different horror films. I believe he also wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer. I don't know if you saw the recent, I think it was a Peacock original movie, Sick, that was about COVID, basically.
No. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I watched that. He's just like he writes a really good satirical horror movie and apparently teen drama. I haven't seen Dawson's Creek, but obviously I'm familiar with it because I am alive. And The Vampire Diaries. Did I say that one?
You should not.
Co-created Vampire Diaries. Yeah.
What a fascinating resume.
Like I say recipe.
I almost did.
Tasty. A tasty treat. Anyway, I clearly enjoy his work. There's several on that list that I have watched and enjoyed, and there's more. I didn't list his full resume. Is that what were you trying to say?
Maybe filmography?
Portfolio? Yeah, I don't know. But he's done some great work. So the two of them, we knew with these names this should be a good thing going. So during my research, I also learned that Scream was originally going to be called Scary Movie.
Interesting.
right?
Huh.
Yeah,
It
they were
kind
just
of
gonna call
makes
it Scary
sense
Movie,
though. Like
right?
it's a
It's a
satire.
satire about
Yeah.
scary movies, but then when, we talk about like what scary movie we are familiar with today, that is a totally different animal.
But heavily reliant on Scream as
Totally.
like their main source of satire, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Yeah, I
So
haven't
that's like
seen that in
extra,
ages.
extra meta.
Totally. Anywho, Scream was released on December 20th, 1996. So apparently it's a Christmas movie now to me.
I think it should be.
According to that fact alone, I would say there is not an ounce of Christmas cheer or any sort of insinuation that this should have been
No.
released on December 20th. So that was a concern, I guess, with the team. Like, is this a good time to be releasing it? Will anyone go see this, during
Yeah.
this time of holiday cheer? And apparently the answer is yes. It ended up being the highest grossing slasher film and held that title until the Halloween requel that was released in 2018. So from 1996 to 2018, according to the internet, it was the highest grossing slasher film. It's a long run.
Wow.
Yeah. I typically love a slasher. They are usually pretty bloody and violent, but
Hmm.
usually campy. It's
Yes.
usually not that serious because of like the high body count and stuff. It's just not that realistic.
Yeah, like they are absolutely like on my list of not actually super scary for the most
Right.
part. I love a campy slasher.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that is part of why this slashers tend to fit into the comfort watch category for me and why like Scream for us is kind of like a cozy. Would you say it's a pretty cozy movie in some ways?
It's fun. I
It's
think it's
fun.
fun. And
Cozy
that,
might be a stretch, but
yeah.
comfort, like it's definitely a comfort watch for a lot of
Yeah.
horror fans. And I think that's part of it is like detaching yourself from it being real, right? Like I feel like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not viewing this as like a what if this happened in real life. This is like it's just take it for what it is as like a fictional piece of entertainment and it's a fun ride.
Yeah. And like from the very beginning, which I know you're gonna get into the plot recap soon, but
Yeah.
there's like a particularly gory part at the beginning that really sets that tone, I think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is gonna be a little ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah. I was, so when you get into the comfort watch territory, you're not often watching, right? You're kind of glancing up while you're doing a chore, reading a book, doing some project on your computer. Like that's how a lot of comfort watching is for me. Like I'm
Yeah.
not just like
Hmm.
sitting there watching. So I really watched the movie during my baby's nap this morning. My sister, when she used to live with me, thought it was super chaotic and weird when she'd come out of her room on like a Sunday morning and I would just be like watching Silence of the Lambs. She'd be like, you are so weird. Like it is 8 a.m. Like, hey, good morning.
It's Halloween, not only all year, but also 24 hours a day for you.
Oh, 100%. But anyway, I was watching Scream this morning. And really watching it. And there are parts that are pretty graphic,
Yeah.
but also like
Mostly
way
at
over the top.
very beginning.
Yes,
And then
yeah.
it kind of forgets that that's what it's about.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, we're going to talk about the opening in a moment because I have a lot more to say about it. But let's wrap up on our little introduction to the movie itself. So we're talking about where does this movie fit into filmography? Google categorizes it as a horror/mystery, which I would say is, you know, both are true. Both are true. But if we
Sure.
are going to get meta here ourselves on the podcast, we would specify it as a meta-slasher-who-dunnit full stop, which is from a movie that you have seen, Scream 5, Scream.
My only other Scream, Scream and Scream.
Yeah, but that you've seen once, and I think
Yeah.
we were talking through half of it, and you watched it in like 2 parts. It was not a good watch experience,
It's a
but
comfort
anyway.
watch. It's fine.
Anyway, I feel like that quote is silly, but does describe it in its entirety. Meta
Yes.
slasher who done it. Full stop. So Scream is rated 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb, 77% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 86% of Google users liked this movie. It's popular.
I love that.
And
so many years later, like that's definitely still
yeah,
stands.
yeah, it holds up for sure. I watched it on Max. That was the only place I saw it streaming right now. If anyone else is trying to watch along with us, but I own it as well. Like, it was just easier
I've been really
to
surprised
stream.
if you didn't.
Yeah, that would be weird. But I do have a DVD collection, and it's in there for sure. Do you remember the first time you saw Scream?
No. It must have been in high school, but I do not have a distinct memory of it.
Yeah, I do. Scream, I think why part of why I love it so much is because it was we've talked about this. I have loved horror for a long time and just like not acknowledged it, similar to you. Um, and so I definitely was watching horror and enjoying horror before this moment, but this watching Scream was like when it started to click for me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an actual vivid memory of it, and I don't know why this movie struck me so much, but it was my junior year in college. I was having a hard time. I was going through a lot. I know you remember my college experience. It was not easy for many reasons, but going into my junior year before that, I had 2 knee surgeries. So and then I also, because of this, these are my my 3rd and 4th knee surgeries of my college career. So I was not doing well. I had not officially quit soccer. It was like a big deal to me at the time. But it was like clearly happening.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't going well. So I was dealing with, a lot of anxiety and depression surrounding my injuries. Kind of like losing the sense of identity. Sorry, this is getting a little bit heavy. But I had this little room, my junior year in college. I had a little single for the first time, which after living in, with roommates and your squished little places is really nice. I had my little single room, and I had this old school like big TV. I don't know how else to describe it, but like old and big. And I could watch cable in there. So that was, what I do sometimes. I just like be able to like watch movies on my own. So this goes along with what I was saying before. It was a Sunday morning. And I know this because no one else was awake aside from me. And I was waiting for everyone else to wake up so that we could go get brunch.
Mm-hmm.
Because on Sundays at my school, we had the omelet bar.
Oh,
so
nice.
good. So good,
I think I
right?
remember the omelet bar.
The omelet bar in college is the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
That is like one of the few things that I really wish I could go back to college for, is like also just having my meals prepared for me.
Oh my God.
So I'm waiting for everyone to wake up, at a normal human college hour, 11-ish or whatever. So it's probably like 9 o'clock. And Scream is on, and it's the actually like the beginning of the movie. I've never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched the opening scene and I was like shook. It's like, this is scary. Like, this is so tense. But I thought it was like really like fun and enjoyable to watch. And then basically when the opening scene cut, like my friends, I was gonna say text me. I don't even know if we were texting then. Knocked on my door, whatever. They were ready to go to brunch, so I had to stop watching and go to brunch. And I was like, oh, I just got to see the rest of that movie. It just like really stuck with me, and that like whole memory. I just remember being like, I don't know, it just like brightened my spirits. I was like, this is just fun. Like, when you're like, you just haven't had fun because you're depressed, and then something happens where you're like, I think I'm enjoying myself. Is this dopamine? Question mark. Is this dopamine or serotonin I'm feeling like floating around in my body for the first time this week? It became a core memory for me, and I don't really know why, but maybe it was because I was just like having a really hard time, and then Scream was like, here I am, I'll entertain you, and now we're best friends.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that Scream brought that to your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little weird, but I don't know. I don't think I'm alone in like having that like comforty kind of memory of it and then it latching on.
No, that's kind of the whole point of our podcast.
A little bit. Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about the movie and not my depression and anxiety anymore.
Isn't that kind of an underlying reason for so much of what we talk about on this podcast?
It's also true.
What are we trying to be comforted from?
Well, the world at large and also our brains.
Yeah.
The call is coming from inside the house. Okay. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
Not all the time, but a lot of the time.
Mhm.
All right, so
Mhm.
let's get into the plot. We open with a young blonde woman named Casey. She's home alone. She answers the phone on her landline. Okay, we're in the 90s, people. We don't have caller. Well, we do have a caller ID. I read somewhere, I don't remember the statistic, but because of Scream, allegedly the use of caller ID like skyrocketed. After Scream, everyone was like, we got to get caller ID. Like, we're done. We're
I
done
love
with this.
that.
Yeah. So thank you, Scream, for that. So she answers the phone. The phone call seems innocent enough. It's a male voice. She tells him that she's making popcorn. She's going to be watching a movie. The call even is kind of airing on like a flirtatious tone. They're kind of like bantering back and forth. And, she hangs up a couple times at the beginning being like, you got the wrong number, whatever. And he just like kind of keeps calling back. And so then eventually she just starts chatting with him. And he starts asking her questions, and we get the first iteration in the Scream franchise of what's your favorite scary movie?
Mhm.
Such a good line. And then things escalate. So the caller asks Casey her name, and she's like, why do you want to know that? And he says, because I want to know who I'm looking at.
That is perfect. It is so perfectly
good.
done.
So good.
You go from this just like entertaining feeling to like it drops, like your stomach drops, like
Totally.
chills. It's perfect.
Totally. And she, has that reaction and she's like, what? And he's like, I want to know who I'm talking to. She's like, that's not what you said. So the tides turn. We now know that she's in trouble and she knows that too. And the caller becomes increasingly threatening at this point. And he says that, he basically is like, yeah, I'm going to kill you. I don't remember. I think he says something about he's going to gut her like a fish. Really cute and comforting movie. But he says he will spare her and her boyfriend, who is also tied up on the patio, if she can answer some horror movie trivia. What do you think about this whole trivia bit? It's pretty well established throughout the Scream movies, and that this is like part of the canon Scream thing. Do you think it's silly? Do you think it's cool?
Oh, I think it's the perfect setup to saying, like, this is going to be meta. This is going to be campy. We're leaning in. We are telling you right now. Like, we're not going to drop subtle hints. We're telling you. I think it's fantastic. And I think that for fans of the horror genre, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it should be cheesy, but the way that they pull it off, it's so
Yes.
fun and so good. So she's definitely not the right person to be taking this quiz. She's not doing great. I mean, who's to say that even if she was a big horror fan and had passed the quiz with flying colors, that they would not still kill her? Certainly can expect that they would. But anyway, they're trying to convince her that, oh, if you can get these questions right, it's like, this is a really high stakes game, right? You get them wrong and you die. So she gets them wrong, and he's like, I'm going to kill you. She's already killed her boyfriend. And this is the first time that we see the killer. We don't actually see who it is. It is we presume, male based on the voice on the phone, wearing a black hooded cloak with a white, distorted, ghostly face, aka Ghostface. Love Ghostface. So in senior year in college, obviously I had this moment in junior year where I fell in love with Scream. So senior year for Halloween, I convinced my friends to dress up like horror movie villains. So I obviously dressed up as Ghostface. It was seriously the most fun night. I remember walking up to a friend in the bar, and I had forgotten that I had my mask down. And he was like, whoa, 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 buddy, back up, back up, back up. I like pulled my mask up and I was like, it's me. And he was like, okay.
That is amazing. Wait,
Yeah.
I have to know, was your costume as billowy as the costume in the film? Because that costume is so ridiculous.
It is the most impractical thing. I remember not being able to breathe, not being able to see. It was not as billowy. It was like belted, a little belted number. And I'm really tall, so it was, not covering. I think in the movie, they're wearing like combat style boots often.
Mm-hmm.
Ghostface is. And I just think I was wearing like sneakers, like all sneakers. So
It's a college Halloween costume.
exactly. But yeah, I don't know. It was a fun time. But anyway, we're introduced to the icon that is Ghostface. Okay, so Casey unfortunately is killed by Ghostface. It's pretty gruesome. Like you said, it's kind of the most gruesome part of the whole film. But what was so interesting about this, which wasn't really relevant to when we were watching it, because we kind of at least had an idea of like what this movie was all about and didn't have any of these like expectations as people did when it was really coming out. But Casey was played by Drew Barrymore. And at the time, Drew Barrymore was like a relatively big deal. She had started her acting career when she was, I think, 6 in E.T.
Yep.
And she just kind of was like already just part of, I think she was a part of a famous family, maybe. I don't remember. She was famous at this point.
Yeah.
She was famous. She was well known. And the way that they advertised the movie was as if she was going to be the leading role. So she was at the forefront of the posters. I rewatched the preview because, previews today I think are really not great in general and give away like scary scenes and scary moments and like whole plot lines. So it's like, well, I wonder if, like how they pulled that off when she's in such a short period of the movie, but they really did like splice it throughout the preview where you can't tell like who really is the main character. So people all thought she was the lead, and she actually, I think, had the they would have potentially cast her as Sydney, but she was like, I want to play Casey because I want to actually have this be a shock to audiences, which I think is so cool that she was like, I want to subvert a trope right away of like, oh, this girl in the opening scene who's the main character is just going to inevitably survive and make it to the end. So then when she dies, like, I guess it was really shocking for people, which I think is so fun.
It was such a great idea. Like, it does it so well. And also, you mentioned, we both talked about how this is the most gory part of the movie. I also think it's the only scary part of the movie. I think the rest of it is a lot of fun. I have only seen it twice, so everything's still kind of a surprise. But that first scene with Drew Barrymore, this, when I went to rewatch it a few weeks ago, I was home alone and it was nighttime and I had to stop because the scene was too scary for me.
It's scary. There's one other part in the movie that we'll talk about later that scares me, but I agree that opening scene is very tense and well done.
Yeah. Hats off to Drew and everybody. That's a good one.
So Casey's dead. Casey's dead. As is her boyfriend Steve. I feel like poor Steve is like a bit of an afterthought.
Didn't even know his name.
Yeah, he was murdered as well. So after this brutal opening scene, we then begin to meet our main cast of characters, including the actual lead of the movie, Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell. So in the next scene, I almost said the opening scene again. So in the next scene, Sydney's in her bedroom and her boyfriend, Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich, sneaks in through her window. And it's established that they appear to be kind of a typical bad boy, good girl pairing. They proceed to have a very high school interchange about how they haven't had sex yet, but they're clearly like attracted and into each other. But Sydney's just not ready. And it's kind of like we're a little curious as to why. So then we head to school with Sydney, and there's police all around, and Sydney finds out from her bestie Tatum, played by Rose McGowan, that her classmates Casey and Steve had been murdered the night before. And Tatum says something along the lines of, it's the worst thing that's happened in years, even worse than, well, it's bad, and kind of trails off. So we're like, what's she talking about? So we're then introduced to the rest of the friend group. We have Stumacher, played by Matthew Lillard. Just a moment of appreciation for Matthew Lillard.
Hands down, for me, the best part of this movie. He's amazing.
Agreed. And there are so many people that I love and feel like absolutely nailed their part, and he's still my favorite. And then rounding out the friend group is Randy. So he is the film geek. He's obsessed with horror movies.
Yeah, no.
So the group's sitting, I think they're having lunch or something. They're talking about the murders in, kind of callous high school way. I feel like it's pretty realistic to how high schoolers might be talking about two people being brutally murdered, two classmates. Obviously, they weren't close with either of them. Yeah. But Sydney seems extra uncomfortable with the conversation. She's kind of grimacing and eventually gets up and leaves. Sydney heads home from school. She's waiting for Tatum to pick her up. She's going to have a sleepover fun at Tatum's house as her dad is away. So Sydney is watching the news, and she picks the channel that's being reported by another great main character in the Scream franchise. Her name is Gail Weathers. She is played by Courtney Cox. This cast is just like so. We're gonna need to come up with another word for iconic, but iconic.
But for now, iconic. Also, the cast of Bangs.
Oh yeah,
Drew,
Bangs go
Neve,
places.
Courtney. Just amazing.
Oh, well, you haven't seen all of the Scream movies, but it's a thing.
I know.
Courtney Cox's bangs. You know that, the micro bang moment.
Yeah.
Her hair goes places in this franchise. But anyway, she is a news broadcaster. She is, in this broadcast, we find out that, that she's talking about the murders of Casey and Steve and saying that they're reminiscent of another murder that happened in the town and happened about a year ago. And it was the murder of Sydney's mother, Maureen Prescott. So, while waiting for Tatum, Sydney's phone rings, and it's Tatum saying she's running late. Seems like that's kind of her thing. Sydney's not surprised. She's just like, all right, like just get going. So they hang up. The phone rings again, and Sydney picks up, being like Tatum, just get in the car. But it's a man's voice. We recognize the voice as Ghostface. Sydney thinks she doesn't know who it is, but she thinks it's maybe Randy playing a prank, trying to be funny. Conversation once again starts out casual, then begins to escalate, and Ghostface tells Sydney that he's responsible for the death of her mother. This obviously is very upsetting to her. They're kind of doing this like whole cat and mouse thing that Ghostface likes to do. She's trying to call his bluff, but then she's like gets a little freaked out and is like, all right, enough. And then she's attacked, straight up attacked by Ghostface. She had made a comment about how she didn't like horror movies at some point, saying how like it's always a dumb blonde with big boobs who's running up the stairs instead of out the front door. And so she's attacked by Ghostface, cannot get out the front door, runs up the stairs. So it's like already we're like getting right into it where, she's we're just going right for it with all of the references to horror tropes. So she puts up a good fight though. She gets away. Mm-hmm. She gets into her bedroom, barricades the door somehow, and then calls 911 on her computer.
Maybe this is why Google said that this movie is a mystery. Because we're all still trying to figure that out.
I did not Google if this was a thing in the 90s, but she's like typing on her computer.
I don't even know if it's a thing today.
I don't know. Computers were obviously very different in the 90s.
Yeah.
Relatively new and had much more limited capabilities, but
yeah,
apparently could call 911. So yeah, that happens. she's able to call for help from her computer, and then Billy, the boyfriend, shows up, and she obviously initially feels safe, but then a phone falls out of his pocket, and so she's like, "That's suspect." So again, this is the 90s. It was pretty rare to have a cell phone, almost like weird. So she's obviously thinking, I think they called it a cellular telephone. Since he had the cellular telephone, she was like, uh-oh, maybe you're the one who calling me and just attacked me because Ghostface is wearing this costume. We don't know who it is. Mm-hmm. So she starts running away and runs out the front door and opens the door, and we just see the Ghostface mask and she screams. And then the person holding the mask pulls it down and he screams. And it is good old Deputy Dewey, played by David Arquette. Another dream.
Amazing.
Oh, so good. So just to connect our cast of characters, it's a really intertwined web here. So Tatum, Sydney's best friend. I could map this all out on a piece of paper. So Tatum, Sydney's best friend, is the sister of Deputy Dewey. Okay, so they're related. He is clearly a novice police officer. Tatum is constantly ragging on him. He's just like an actual goober.
The
100%.
goober is so perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect.
That is exactly. He's just a goober. Like, he is, things change throughout the course of the franchise. But in the first movie, he's very brave, but he's definitely not the kind of person that, like, I would feel safer because he was around necessarily.
No.
A little bit, like, marginally, because he has, like, a little bit of police training and a gun. But, like, if I had to pick, like, Dewey or Sydney in this movie, I would go with Sydney for sure.
Every time.
Every time. All right. So we were introduced to him. He is so great. They all go to the police station. Billy is interrogated because it seems like he was involved. He was on the scene, had the phone, etc. Sydney and Tatum are also at the police station, and Tatum's just like, we're leaving. See ya. And they head out the side door, and Gail Weathers, the reporter, finds them because she's just so good at her job. And she's trying to get a quote from Sydney for her news segment. And clearly they have beef because Sydney punches her. And then they eventually go home. So later at Tatum's house, Sydney and Tatum are starting their sleepover finally. Okay. So the phone rings and the phone's for Sydney. So Sydney picks up the phone. It's Ghostface. And he says some really inappropriate line, like, I fingered the wrong guy again or something. Something yucky. And so we find out soon after that there is a man in jail, actually, for the murder of Sydney's mom. His name is Cotton Weary. And the reason why he was convicted for this murder was because of Sydney's testimony. And just to close the loop on this whole crazy introduction, she has the beef with Gail because Gail was writing a book and she thinks Cotton is innocent. She does not think that Sydney properly identified him, but he's going to fry, as they all put it. He was convicted of murder. And that's the truth as Sydney knows it. So Sydney's going through it. She's having a hard time. I've seen a meme circulate on the internet that, like, Sydney, I don't know, is something about, like, being a survivor of, like, this and that, but also of, like, chronic neck pain. Because, like, in the movie, she's just, like, frequently, like, oh my God, just, like, grabbing her neck. And
so true.
Yeah. Like, next time you watch it, you'll just be like, wow, that is happening a lot. Like, she's got headaches, she's got neck pain, girl is stressed out, and fairly so. So they go to school the next day. I mean, after she's, like, attacked, I, like, probably would stay home, but I don't know. And, things are awkward because, like, they let Billy go. The phone records were clean. They have no reason to keep him otherwise. So she's like, well, this is awkward. Like, I accused my boyfriend of trying to murder me. Like, now I'm going to see him. It's going to be weird. And it is weird, inevitably. Like, she's definitely tense, doesn't know what to do. And he's like, when are you going to be comfortable with me? Like, blah, blah, blah. They have a whole exchange that we won't get into. Blah, blah, drama. So Sydney gets attacked again in, like, one of the more disgusting bathrooms.
Oh, it was
gross,
repulsive,
filthy. I'm not sure why. Anyway,
high school in the 90s, man.
I guess, yeah. They just threw all their tissues
That's
on the
all
ground.
I know about it.
Yeah, this is our one frame of reference, and it's gross. So Sydney is attacked, and then the principal just announces over the intercom, like, school's canceled. Like, forever, basically, because of, things that are going on. And also there's a town-wide curfew. So like you got to go home by 9. That's just over the intercom. So everyone's like, all right, well, we're just out of school until further notice. And then we find out also that Sydney's father, who's supposed to be away on business, has gone missing. Yeah. And the cell phone records have been recovered. They've been checking all the cell phone records to see who was calling, cross-referencing who was calling Casey and who was calling Sydney. And his cell phone records showed that he was calling both of them. Dear old dad has become the primary suspect. Because school is closed indefinitely, Stu is like, I'm going to throw a party because, like, why not? Right? We're not going to school tomorrow, so let's party, even though there's a masked killer on the loose.
Seems like an unhinged thing to do, but
yeah. Stu at baseline seems pretty unhinged. Like, he is here for a good time, period. That's it. That's all he's worried about. So a lot of people end up gathering at Stu's house, including Deputy Dewey, who is there to, I don't know, keep an eye on things, as, you know, they're still assuming that Sydney is a target, especially now thinking that is her dad. So they're wanting to keep an eye on her, and, you know, his sister's there. He's protective over Sydney. He's hanging about. And then he is really happy to be there because Gale Weathers also shows up. So they have been flirting a bit throughout the movie. Dewey is clearly like crushing hard. Yes. But Gale is definitely flirting as like a tactic, right? Yeah. She's trying to just, you know, get information from him and kind of charm him and get involved in the case because she wants to crack the case, basically just to, you know, write another book or, you know, get more famous than she is as a news reporter. So they go in the house and Dewey's kind of like joking around with everybody at the party, and Gale is just like planting a camera to watch them. I don't know what she thinks she's gonna find on the camera, like what is gonna crack the case, but she plants a camera, and I don't know, they're cute together. And this movie is actually where Courtney Cox and David Arquette like first met, and, you know, they eventually started dating, were married for several years. Like, they have very good chemistry despite like their characters being so different. They're cute.
Totally agreed.
Yeah. So Stu asks his girlfriend Tatum, oh so sweetly, to go fetch him a beer, and I don't know, she says something funny like, "What am I, the beer wench?" Like, I love Tatum. She's so great.
Yes.
But she complies. She goes to get some beers from the garage, and Ghostface comes in. And at the school earlier, this was, you know, I guess just a costume that was available. They had established that at some point in the movie. So other boys had dressed up as a joke. So she's assuming, you know, someone's got a Ghostface costume on and is joking. Once again, things kind of escalate. He like cuts her arm with a knife. She tries to get away. She tries to escape out the doggy door. Like, she actually put up a pretty good fight. She was pretty close to getting free. And unfortunately, she gets squished in the garage door. That one's tough.
It's a memorable scene.
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah.
And sad. I really like Tatum. Anyway, we just move on. So she gets crushed, and then we're just like back to the party. The party is starting to wind down. Some people are leaving, you know, like the curfew abiding kids. And Billy shows up. Sydney and Billy reconcile, and for who knows what reason, Sydney is like, yes, I will now have sex with you. And then Randy and the rest of the gang, including Stu, who are still at the party, they're watching Halloween downstairs. Classic slasher. And at this point, we've had a lot of meta moments throughout this movie, but Randy pauses the movie to outline the rules of surviving a horror movie. I just love Randy. I don't think we've had like a Randy appreciation moment
yet. He's great, and he's also like an audience stand-in.
Yes.
In many ways.
Yes.
Like, he's as the horror fan in the movie, he's pointing out the things that like the people who know are noticing in the movie. And it's great because then anybody can enjoy it also.
Absolutely. And he's just really funny too.
He is, yeah.
Just
yeah.
so
He's a good one.
His delivery is funny, and he's very passionate about horror movies. So yeah, he's laying out all the tropes and of what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And that scene is so funny. Like when he says something like, "Don't ever say I'll be right back," and then Stu says, I'm gonna go get a beer. Do you want one?" and Randy's like, "Yeah," and then Stu like backs out like this. "I'll be right back." Yeah, it's
Again,
so good.
The greatest.
It's so good. This movie, just like on a comedy level, just really gets my sense of humor for sure. So while this is going on, Dewey and Gale are, Dewey's, I don't know, like checking the perimeter, walking around, looking. Basically, they're just like on a romantic stroll. Let's be real.
Yes.
that's what they're doing. And then the rest of the party goers leave Randy alone to finish the movie because Randy picked up the phone. Someone called. I don't know who called. But they find out that the principal of the school had been murdered. We already knew this had happened earlier in the film, but according to the phone call, the principal was like hung from the goalpost or something gnarly. Oof. And all the students are like very enthused about going to see if they can catch a glimpse. It's clear that the principal was not well loved, and I believe 2 of the boys who were at the party were the 2 that had done the Ghostface prank, and then he had expelled earlier in the movie.
Yeah,
but still. Yeah, pretty like that would not be my first reaction. Wouldn't be like, let's go look.
No,
that would not be. So Sydney and Billy have done the deed, and Sydney is still like kind of sus with Billy. She's like questioning him, and not really in like a serious way, but you can tell that like her gut is like, something's off here. And he's like getting frustrated, like, what is it gonna take for you to actually trust me? And then she is like, oh my God, look out. Ghostface is in the room. He stabs Billy. So Sydney, then we get into the whole like things are going off now. Okay. We are here. We are here. Right. So we'll just hit some of the high points of this whole like Ghostface just terrorizing the entire party. So Sydney runs away from Ghostface. She, gets away, is running down the street. Gale has also like gotten up to some action and is trying to drive away in her news van and almost runs over Sydney, ends up crashing into a tree. Okay, so Sydney's like, okay, well, she's gonna be not helpful now. So she goes back to the house. Dewey is coming out of the house. He has been stabbed in the back and collapses. So sad.
Dewey.
Okay. So Sydney has just basically been like running around like screaming, crying for like a while. But she's going, right? She is not giving up. She's going. So she gets into Dewey's police jeep. But Ghostface has the keys. Now this is the other scene in the movie that the first time I watched it, I thought was pretty scary. So he like jingles the keys and then drops, and you don't know like which door he's going to try to open. So he's staying low and like unlocking a door where she can't see, and she's having to like run over and hit the locks. Yeah. Okay. And so then she does call over the radio, calls for help. So we know like police help is coming soon. But as she's doing that, the trunk of the Jeep opens and she doesn't know.
See, and I'm getting chills now. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. That one's scary
That
too.
scene is scary.
Yeah.
Ghostface jumps through the back of the Jeep, gets her. She still gets away. She's running in to the house, and Stu and Randy are like trying to get in the house, and they're both being like, he's Ghostface. No, he's Ghostface. They're both kind of like just looking sweaty and maniacal. And she's just like kind of like looking back and forth, being like, who do I believe? Who do I trust? And then just ends up going in the house, shutting the door and being like, fuck you both.
Which I love. I love that.
Right?
Good instincts.
Yeah. No, Sydney makes a lot of the right choices, which is how she was written, right? To be like, when you're screaming at the lead character, like, do not do this, do not do that. Like, some of it happens because it's like forced. Yeah. She has no other choice. But other times she's doing the thing that you're always like yelling at the screen, like, no, do this. Like, you'd
She
be
does
yelling
it.
that, right? Like, don't let
Yeah.
either of them in. She does it. She shuts the door. And then Billy kind of like very awkwardly falls down the stairs, but he's alive. Okay, so we think that he's been stabbed to death upstairs. He's like, oh, like all covered in blood. Sydney has a gun at this point. I don't remember where she got it. She has a gun. He takes the gun from her, and you know, is basically just like, oh, it's like, it's okay, I got this. He opens the front door for some unknown reason, lets Randy back inside, and Randy's like, Stu's gone mad, blah blah blah. And then Billy says the line, like, we all go a little mad sometimes, and then just shoots him, right? So this is like the moment, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Billy is Ghostface. The blood was fake. So then you're like, okay, well, like, who stabbed you then if you're Ghostface? So Stu stumbles in, and Sydney kind of goes to try to like hide with him. And he holds up the voice modulator and says, surprise, Sydney.
Oh, God. If it's good. Yeah, I know. That was well done.
Pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've been practicing. But anyway, Stu and Billy, two ghost faces.
Mm-hmm.
Did this surprise you the first time? Do you remember?
Oh, I do not remember, but I kind of feel like no.
Really?
It kind of all clicks into place. I mean,
Yeah.
Matthew Lillard unhinged the entire movie.
Yeah.
And then Billy's character, like, I'm with Sydney.
Yeah.
Like, if she's suspicious, I'm suspicious.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think one thing that is interesting once they reveal themselves to be the killers is that Billy's personality totally shifts. He goes from this kind of like heart-throbby, sweet, I'm so understanding, oh, you're not ready to have sex, that's okay, I'm so patient, I'm so chill. And he has these moments throughout the movie where you see like, something's off about this guy. But in general, he's playing this like nice guy act for sure. Like sweet, perfect boyfriend. But Stu is exactly the same. Right? Just a little more murdery.
Yes.
Yeah. His personality does not change. So we quickly learned that Billy does have a motive. Okay, so Sydney's mom was apparently just kind of going about town and just sleeping with a lot of guys despite being married. And that's part of, you know, Sydney's challenge with this whole situation is like accepting that really is what her mom was doing, which totally understandable that would be hard to find out and to come to terms with. So Sydney's mom had cheated with Billy's dad, which resulted in Billy's mom abandoning him, leaving the family and going away. So he obviously held a grudge. He, you know, reveals that they were the ones that killed her as a result. And I thought this was a really interesting moment because they pan to Stu and his face is like totally different because he is realizing that Billy actually has a motive. He does not. Okay, it's just like he just like actually looks a little dismayed, but then he quickly like snaps out of it and is like, anywho, whatever.
Yeah. So, I got this far.
Yeah. So we also learn, like I said, that Billy and Stu are the ones who killed Sydney's mom and that they framed Cotton Weary, and we're saying it was so easy to do, and they plan to do the same thing. They've already been setting it up to frame Sydney's father for this, who is just like tied up in the closet and has apparently been tied up for days. Okay, so Sydney is obviously stressing out, but they're not going to kill her yet. I don't know. They want to explain their whole
classic
plan.
Villains.
Right. They're like, we got to tell you how awesome we are. So then Billy and Stu proceed to take turns stabbing each other because they want to appear that they were victims and apparently are very committed. So they've obviously discussed this before, like where to stab, not to go too deep, not to hit any like vital organs. Okay. But Billy definitely gets a little, he's like starting to lose it, right? And he is stabbing Stu pretty hard. It's still funny though. Like Stu's reaction. He says at one point, he's like, I'm getting a little woozy here. I read something about like Matthew Lillard reflecting on his uh performance, and he's like, oh, I don't know if you say he was like, kind of like embarrassed about it or something. He's like, it was just so over the top. Like if I ever saw anyone else acting like that over, I would be like, you need to take it down like 58%.
But it was perfect for
I
this movie.
agree.
It makes this movie what it is.
I agree because how dark would that be if it was just
Right.
two friends all of a sudden stabbing each other? Like that's messed up. But
Yes.
it was funny.
Uh-huh.
It was funny. Yeah. Stu is chef's kiss.
Yes.
Okay. So at some point, they're doing this, and then Billy's like, all right, like get the gun, like we're gonna go finish everybody else off. Finish the frame job we've got going here. The gun's gone. They're like, who has the gun? Okay, so Gail has come to, and she's got the gun, and she almost manages to shoot them. But
So
she
close.
forgets to take off the safety. Now, let me tell you, because of this movie, I am not into guns. I'm not a gun owner. Never will be. But my dad is like a hunter, has a gun collection, and I had him show me on several different guns how to take the safety off because I was like, this will not be me.
That's very smart.
No.
That's
if
great.
I need to use one, I want to know how it works, right?
Absolutely.
I think it still is a good idea to know how they function and to be like have some degree of comfort with them, I suppose. Anywho, he knocks Gail out. He's about to shoot her. And says something like, it's Gail Weathers signing off. And then Stu's like, we got a problem here. Okay, so like during this whole situation with Gail, they just forget to keep an eye on Sydney, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go, and manages to be extremely productive during this time. She calls the police, reports them both now that she knows that they're the killers, gives the police both of their names, okay, then calls them, has found the voice modulator and is calling them with the voice modulator, so she sounds like Sydney, like if Sydney were Ghostface.
I love that she's like, oh, I'm gonna mess with you guys. She's not just gonna go hide somewhere. She's going on the offensive. It's so much fun.
That is what really gets me about this scene. So she's like talking to Stu, and he is like clearly dying from the stab
a lot of blood loss.
And she's like, Stu, like Billy has a motive. Like, what's your excuse, basically? And he's like, peer pressure. And then she says something about, like, he's like, did you really tell the police it was us? And she's like, you bet your ass I did. And then this is what we're naming the episode after. He says the line, oh, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. It's just so funny. So, like, all the while, like, Stu is just, like, being Stu, and Billy is increasingly unhinged. So, at one point in this scene, Billy throws the phone at Stu, like because of the like fake blood on Billy's hand. I guess the phone slipped like out of Skeet. I'll say the actor's name because this is like now talking about the actor part. So he wasn't supposed to hit him in the head with the phone. It was supposed to like land next to him.
Oh.
So it hits him, it's Stu in the back of the head. And so that wasn't supposed to happen. But instead of like them doing another take, Matthew Lillard just improvised the line, you hit me in the... I gotta regroup for this one. You hit me with the phone, dick! It's so funny. He's just like bent over, like bleeding out, just like...
Great.
It's just so funny. Okay, so we know Sydney has the upper hand. She jumps out of the closet in full Ghostface costume and
Billy
stabs
and everything.
Mask on. She stabs Billy with an umbrella. Like, it's so funny, but also like, girl.
Yeah.
It's like the phone call, the voice modulator. Sure. Like to put the costume on, like she's extra
And it gives her no advantage.
No, less. Like I said, it takes away all of your senses.
Yeah.
Right? So she's stabbing him with an umbrella, which appears to be effective. Another fun fact. You know that part in Lord of the Rings where Aragorn kicks something and everyone's like, oh, at this moment it's a real scream of pain because he breaks his toe. Okay, so now this is going to be me. Anytime Sydney hits him with the umbrella, I'm going to say that actually was a real cry of pain from Ski Ulrich because when he was a child, he had a serious heart surgery and had this really one soft spot in his sternum that she accidentally hit with the umbrella and it really, really hurt him. Anyway.
I'm also impressed we got all the way to episode 2 without a Lord of the Rings reference.
That was pretty... We didn't talk about it at all in the first one?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so we're going to have to just reference it because it really doesn't fit our podcast. Like, we're going to have to really, like, contort ourselves to do a Lord of the Rings episode, which we might, but we'll just have to, like, name drop it.
The references
as often
will happen.
Yeah, they're inevitable. They are part of the personality.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so she incapacitates Billy with the umbrella, takes off her mask and the robe. She's back to being Sydney again. And then Stu attacks her. And she fights him off and kills him by dropping a TV on his head. Great kill.
A very good one.
Great kill. That I'm like sounding like a horror fan now, but it is something that we appreciate. I was just thinking,
how many times are we gonna in this podcast say great kill?
Oh, I will say it several times. Yeah. It's just part of the campy fun. Okay. Yes. TV on the head and he's all like, blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's silly. It's silly. Again, could be extremely disgusting and graphic and disturbing, but in this movie, it's just done in a way that's like very silly. Okay. So Sydney's like doing amazing, but then Billy, has not been killed by the umbrella, unfortunately, and he attacks Sydney once again. He is about to stab her, presumably kill her, and Gale shoots him.
Satisfying.
And she says some like great line about like got the safety off that time, you bastard. And then Randy is still kicking, and he says something like, "Be careful, this is the point in the horror movie when the killer comes back for one last scare." And so Billy kind of sits up and goes, ah, and Sydney just shoots him right in the head. There's another thing when you're always like I'm always screaming at the horror movies. I sounds like so obnoxious. In my head, I'm saying like you got to separate the head from the body. Okay. It's just
gruesome.
Yes. But if you get the upper hand and you incapacitate someone, that is the only way that I will be confident that they are done. Headshot is another good way to go.
I think so.
That's like a thing me and my sister say like as a lighthearted joke. But yes, I guess it is pretty gross. Like you gotta separate the head from the body. Yeah. Okay. So we did it. They're dead. The killers are dead. We persevered. And
Yay.
Gale, Randy, Sydney, and Dewey survive.
Thank goodness.
And one last fun fact before I tell you an entire story's worth of fun fact after this. Dewey was, I guess, a question mark. They had the footage to either... Well, I read two things. One was that they had the footage to either have him die or survive, depending on the audience reaction. And the other was that he came back to refilm the stretcher scene where he's being stretchered out because people liked him so much. And they were like, we've got to salvage him for the next movie.
I'm glad Dewey survives that way.
Yeah, same. I know. He's great, and he really makes the rest of the movies. Because now, unfortunately, we don't have Stu.
I know.
Who is cast in the upcoming Scream 7.
Oh, I mean, Skeet comes back in the recent Scream
form. Yeah. So I don't know what role, like what that means, but he will be there.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope he does not dial it back 58%.
Same.
It would be very disappointing. Matthew Lillard, if you find this podcast.
Keep it at 158%.
Thank you.
Please. So yes, as I mentioned, Scream 7 will be the next installment, slated for release in February of 2026. So we've got to wait a while, but
okay.
we have 5 others to have you watch until
I
then.
can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. So, Sarah, would you like to play a game? No, that's the wrong franchise. That's from Saw.
Close. It was close enough.
What's your favorite scary movie? What was that voice? I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to put you through some Scream horror trivia. Are you ready? Have you been studying?
I am ready. I have not been studying. I wanted to go in this genuinely, and with the caveat that I would not have survived the phone call that Drew Barrymore got.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, well, we'll find out. But I guess the answer is no. So the first round of our game, we are going to have you name the horror movie that was referenced in these iconic lines from the movie Scream. All right, you saw the movie.
Okay.
The answers were there.
All right.
You were not prepared for this at all. So here is your warm-up question. Okay, so here's the line. This is a line from Ghostface. I don't know if I can conjure the Ghostface voice. That was a one-time thing. But at this point, this is at the early in the movie, so he's kind of just like talking a little bit normally. Okay, he's not like super sultry.
Yes.
So here's the line. Is that the one where the guy had knives for fingers? I liked that movie. It was scary. What's the movie?
Friday the 13th.
No.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street. That's
Oh, you were so quick with the draw and so wrong. But you got there.
You know what's really
Good
funny
job.
is like I do enjoy horror movies. We've talked about this so much.
Yeah.
I think I lack a lot of knowledge about the true classics.
Well,
I'll be doing some learning.
To the right place.
Yeah.
You've come to the right place. All right. Next line is from Randy. He says, "What's Leatherface doing here?" What movie is he referencing?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that one traumatized me enough that I remember it.
Okay. The last line, which we already talked about, was a line by Billy, and he says, "We all go a little mad sometimes."
So I don't know at all.
Then he finishes, he says, "Norman Bates, Psycho."
Oh.
That's a tough one. Such a good movie. Have you seen that?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. It's so good. We will be watching it.
Okay, great.
I don't know if we'll be covering it this year. I can't remember. But eventually, for sure.
Okay, great.
So great. Okay. So next, you are going to be filling in the blank. Okay. So they say the movie. You're gonna figure out what it is.
Okay.
We already talked about this line too. So Billy says, "Corn syrup, same thing they used for pig's blood in
Carrie."
Yeah. Oh, that was such a weird yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Another line from Billy. Billy is clearly horror movie obsessed. They have a whole discussion in the movie of where he's like, "Don't blame the movie, Sydney. Like, movies don't make killers. Movies just make killers more creative." Do I have this whole movie memorized?
You might.
Okay. So Billy says, this is from the beginning of the movie. This line is so weird. Break up with him, Sydney. Anyway, he says, I was home watching television. Blank was on. It got me thinking of you.
I don't remember this one.
He says, The Exorcist.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I don't think he ever elaborates why The Exorcist got him thinking of her. Can't think of a good reason.
See, like, this is why it's not surprising when he turns out to be the killer. He gives off weird vibes the entire movie.
This next line is from Randy. He's very passionate when he's saying this. This is during the whole Halloween rant about if we knew the rules, right, we would survive the movie. So he says, if they watched blank, they'd save time. There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect. What did he suggest that they'd watch to learn all the tropiest tropes of trope? This is a hard one. I would not have gotten this one if I didn't have this movie memorized.
No, I got nothing on this one.
Prom Night, which was in the 70s. It was a Jamie Lee Curtis back when she was like Scream Queen. Well, she still is.
Yeah.
But she was just in like several slashers right in a row. All right. Final question. Name the killer in Friday the 13th.
Jason?
No, Sarah, this is why Casey gets killed. Because she says Jason and gets it wrong. And then he says, that's the wrong answer. And then she says, I know it's Jason. I've seen that movie 20 or like 50 goddamn times. Do you know what the right answer is now?
I have never actually seen Friday the 13th.
Oh, no. Well, at least you have that excuse.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you then.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
But except Scream would have spoiled it for me.
Well, you seem to have.
But I obviously forgot it.
They name drop so many horror movies. I linked, one of the links is like a article that goes through every horror movie referenced, and it's a lot.
It's so many.
It's so fun. Okay, that's it for today's Comfort Horror Recap. Sweet dreams, homebodies.
And now it's time for your bedtime story.
I was walking along the road with two friends. The sun was setting. I felt a wave of sadness. The sky suddenly turned blood red. I stopped, leaned against the fence, tired to death. Gazed out over the flaming clouds like blood and swords. The blue-black fjord and city my friends walked on. I stood there, quaking with angst, and I felt as though a vast, endless scream passed through nature. That lighthearted little quote was an entry from the diary of artist Edvard Munch. It was written in 1892, and it was thought to describe the event that led to his famous work of art titled The Scream. Are you familiar with this painting?
I am, and this is a fascinating fact to tie this into.
Right? So I love the painting. It's something where I linked an article where you can pull up the painting. It's like right on the top of the article. And it's one of the ones where if you don't know it by name or by artist, like you see it and you know it. It's pretty widely known. So it's a painting of a man with distorted features. He's standing on a bridge underneath this beautiful, vibrant orange and red sky with two other people pictured on the bridge. It's gorgeous. It's famous. I find it pretty haunting. It's like hauntingly beautiful.
Yes.
But why are we talking about it? Why is it relevant? So it's widely believed that this painting was the inspiration for the Ghostface mask. And although the production team for Scream may have taken some stylistic inspiration from this famous painting, it's not the real origin story of the Ghostface mask. The story I actually think is more interesting. And I'm going to tell that to you now. Good for me. So the mask was not actually original for the movie. They weren't sure what they wanted the mask to be. I looked up at some of the early sketches. They are very bizarre. It's one of those things where you see the creative process leading to some of these decisions and you are like, wow, I am so glad that they did not do that. Just really silly. You know, this movie is very silly, but I feel like it doesn't go to like cheesy territory. Like the Ghostface mask is just really cool and like silly but scary. Like I feel like it walks that line.
It's so scary. Yeah.
It's not over the top where it's just like, oh, this is just a dumb mask. So Wes Craven, the director, and his team, they were scouting locations for the film, and they went to this home that had been used in a previous Alfred Hitchcock movie, so it was kind of on their radar, but it had been left abandoned after the passing of the widowed owner. So she had passed on and the house was empty. So the team was walking around, and the producer named Marion Madalena was walking upstairs into a bedroom, and she was startled because on a chair, just draped over a chair, was this ghostly white mask.
It's fair.
So,
it's a fair reaction.
Just in this like older woman's she had just been living there alone. There's just this like creepy mask upstairs. Okay, so she kind of regrouped, grabbed the mask, ran downstairs to show the others, being like, I think this would be amazing. So they investigated. They're like, where did this mask come from? Like, how do we get it? And they find out that it was part of this line of masks called Fantastic Faces, and for this novelty company called Fun World. Still exists today. You can look them up and buy novelty goods from them. So the artist who created the mask that we now know as the Ghostface mask was named Brigitte Slyerton Linden, And she was tasked with designing a mask that would kind of emulate the traditional children's ghost costume. So, like, the white sheet pulled over the face with the eyes cut out. Like, they wanted that, right, but like an elevated version. Like, how would we make this into a real costume? So she actually addressed she's like, a lot of people assume that I was inspired by Edvard Munch's Scream painting. She's like, I see why, basically, but like, I just wasn't. Like, that just wasn't like how it went down. And she actually was inspired by a much less likely source, Betty Boop.
Fascinating.
Right? So she said that she loved, this is actually, let me just read the quote that she says about designing the mask. Quote, I loved the old Max Fleischer cartoons, and Betty Boop was one of my faves. Those faces were mostly inspired by the ghost from one of those old 1930s black and white cartoons, end quote. So, Ghostface came from Betty Boop, basically. That was the inspiration.
So interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I love it.
A little bit of Scream lore for you to end the episode.
Amazing. Well, on that note, I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. And Ashley, what are we talking about next week?
Sarah, I am so excited for next week's episode. We are staying in satire land, and we'll be talking about the cabin in the woods next week. See you there.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Homebodies. And if you're back again for another slumber party, we're so glad to have you.
If you haven't already, please take a quick minute to leave us a review and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And also follow us on our haunted social channels. You can find us at Haunted Homebodies Pod. Until next time, and remember, when in doubt, just stay home.